Alright, starting stream, I guess that means that I should hop on in the chippity chitty chat.
Hop like a bunny!
Oh my god, we're back playing Hayseed Knight.
We're back playing Hayseed Knight.
Chapter 4!
Chapter 4 of 27.
Hopefully we will get to Chapter 4. I'm starting from right here. And hopefully there aren't any weird bugs that cause me to divert from using an old save or something.
Yeah,
you never know.
You really don't. Video games are held together by duct tape and chipmunks.
That was hopes and dreams.
Nope, duct tape and chipmunks.
Last we left off, does anybody want to explain the plot of Hayseed Knight?
Nope.
Miller does.
Alright, Miller, explain it.
Okay, Adder is an idiot and Sep is a bitch, and they're the best at it at the end.
You know what? That's fair.
Y'all feeling all right there?
Adder directed a brief, confused look at Sep. She smirked.
Lad, I always knew you had the givings of a poet. But to think you had such words hidden inside of you!
This is impossible! How can a peasant, worse, a farmer like you have such a vast vocabulary and nuanced understanding of the allures of the game? Your spiel was beyond beautiful. It was absolutely splendid! But I purchased Jacif's affections legally, damn it! Her love belongs to me and no one else!
I have a receipt!
Did Sir Askadeth just casually admit he's a horn eater? Are nobles allowed to do that? You think it's
Nobles
a court
are allowed
fad
to
or
do
something?
Anything.
Well,
Nobles
don't
can
waste
do
time
anything they
looking,
want
lads. I'm right here if you want to be fashionable.
I don't care how many horns the nobles are eating. That still doesn't explain those hand marks. The witch must have charmed Sir Askadeth to distract us. She's charmed them both! Burn her! Burn the Siphi or we riot!
Burn the witch! Burn the witch! Burn the witch!
Man.
Lacking
We're
torches.
gonna have to change that sign that was like, it has been X days since the last witch burning.
Lacking torches, the mob set their pitchforks on fire. They began walking towards Sep as they chanted for her death. You know, those pitchforks are kind of expensive. Ada realized that there was only one way to save Sep and get out of this ungodly mess. True thing.
Oh, hold up! Oh, what's this? My head! Oh, what's going on?
By which we mean, not true thing.
Oh, the voices of this rock-throwing, witch-burning, bloodlusting mob have opened my eyes at last! Oh, the spell is broken! I could think clearly at last!
Patron, how could you do this to me?
What? How dare you turn on me, Yodson!
Oh, that's
This
right.
man
Yes.
put his hands on me and cast a spell, and oh, fire! Oh, fire all over the place! And next I knew, more than a dozen moons had passed, and not a contract in sight!
That is absolutely despicable! But how can we trust this truant? We only have his word!
That's not true. Look, the merchant's got hands. Witch hands. They fit perfectly fine in the mark. See? See? And you know what else? He's red, the color of fire. What more proof can any of us need, dear jury?
Ah, Witchfinder tactics. Always a classic.
Yeah! That asshat Geoff
He
is
weighs
right!
the same as
the
a
evidence
duck!
is overwhelming! Why did we listen to a Siphi in the first place?
I mean, they've also burned this guy at the stake, like, what, 100 times so far?
Yeah, it just doesn't take.
Yeah.
You're not getting out
He's
of
got
here
an
alive,
annoying
son of
stickiness to him,
Garbage!
like peanut
You
butter.
hear me? I'm going to kill you! And then I'm going to fire you! You treacherous gilly wet hoof! You're fired! Fired, I say!
No, first you're the one who's getting fired.
In that
I
order,
really wanted
yes.
that just keep going for like a solid minute.
You're the only one who's getting fired here, witch!
Oh, see? They did the thing that I did.
And so Geoff spearheaded the mob's effort to build a pyre, taking the merchant and Ader's sins with them.
Take it from a deserter, Pops. Better lose your job than your life.
Adder, you're a sneaky little bastard. But you're a good sneaky little bastard. Thank you for helping Sep out, lad.
What in the actual name of Oblivion just happened?
Oh, Elbar. I told you didn't understand what a public trial would entail.
Indeed. It's obvious I clearly don't. I have failed miserably to channel the fickle ire of the masses towards the neck of this lowlife. But do you know which concept I have an excellent grasp of? Executions!
Elbar, don't be a sore loser. The town has already pronounced its sentence.
Listen to him, Sir Askadath. Revenge is pointless. Keep your head. You can still be a hero in my eyes.
This is not about heroism. It's a matter of honor. You have mocked me as you please, one-eyed scoundrel. But I shall be the one to have the last laugh.
Elbar fell upon Adder with all the might of his cutlass as he screamed. His blade didn't cut flesh as it descended, but metal.
Stop this assault at once, Elbar!
Adder opened his eyes, finding an unexpected hero hovering above him.
Bearbith?
Bearbith had diverted the course of Elbar's sword with his parrying dagger, making his half-brother hit the ground instead.
What? I mean, my lord, I'm glad to see you standing, but I don't believe you're properly awake. Why did you stop me? Isn't this the one-eyed scoundrel that dared attack you in the first place?
He did attack me, yes, but he didn't do so without reason. I was the one who started the incident. This deer is innocent. I have come to pardon him at Aina's behest.
Aina's what now? What did you do to my boss, Four Eyes?
I merely welcomed her to my palace. Even after my grievous attack on her person, she found her way to me, seeking to share the news of your impending death. You are truly a fortunate man, Adder. Aina's loyalty may be the most remarkable of her features, but I digress. It would seem that I suffered a brief bout of amnesia following the blow, prompting me to disregard her at first. But her arguments were so swaying that I could not bear to remain idle another second. I had to put an end to this injustice.
Then, this venison's claims were true after all? You attempted to dishonor a doe?
Well, I wouldn't say dishonor, or doe, but the point stands. Addled by my insatiable curiosity, and my need to be right, I gave in to my impulses and acted in a completely unforgivable way. I would have absolutely struck myself given the occasion. Not quite as hard, however.
I am beyond befuddled by this turn of events! What would you have me do, my liege? I have already drawn my sword dramatically at him!
Oh, let it be. Throw your sword against the pavement or curse the skies with it. It will make no change to the fact that it was no deer's fault but my own. And perhaps his a little.
Mr. Bearbith,
There's nothing to be said, friend. Truly. I should have not insisted so stubbornly. I still don't believe Aina could be anything remotely alive, in the traditional sense of the word. But I believe firmly that my behavior was out of place. An apology is the least I can offer. And besides, Aina promised to let me inspect every nook and cranny of her body if I came here to help you. Look, I have this signed note right here. Oh, I can't wait to follow up on my previous discoveries.
Adder didn't manage to take one single step forward before Illigrab lifted him off the ground.
Adder, no! Think happy thoughts, but not too happy. Think about our lessons on the importance of self-determination and the dangers of infantilizing women!
Right! Yeah! Saving me was mighty kind of her, and if she wanna keep promises and do something like that, then that's her business. Give me a moment, I think I'm gonna throw up.
Adder tumbled away towards a discreet corner, holding his hands over his whole face. Elbar did much the same, but in the opposite direction. Illigrab followed suit to make sure he didn't change his mind.
And speaking of discoveries, hello, dear. What's a subject like you doing here?
Sep's tail sprung up in horror as Bearbeth began walking in circles around her.
Lord Askadav, it's an honor to meet you again. Perhaps your memory is a little fuzzy after the incident. We already met some moons ago, remember?
Oh, that is absolutely preposterous! Concussions rarely affect a long-term memory, and this is far from the worst blow I've received. You must be mistaking me for some other hornless deer. I assure you, I would not forget a frame like yours quite so easily. I had read about large gazelles during the heyday of the Zaxarat, when food was abundant and the vast majority of tasks were carried out by golems. But I'd never had the chance to examine an overweight Bahan with my own eyes.
That's right.
Yes.
This will be a fantastic addition to my anatomical compendium. I'm going to need height, weight, age, and a few extra measurements, if you don't mind. I think I'll name your case Quaint Occurrence of the Cervine Gazelle Type. You could even pass for a doe.
Wow. And then the murder.
Forgoing the need for permission or a single intelligent thought, Bearbeth gleefully produced a wax tablet and a stylus from his shawl.
I have to admit that you do look somewhat familiar, though. Aha, I see. You must be Elbar's kitchen maid, correct? Oh, I understand now. Someone has been sneaking into their master's pantry.
This Boxer says, I want to punch this guy again.
Dude,
I think everybody
this
does.
man has no sense of self-preservation.
Everyone left in the plaza turned around upon hearing the slap. Everyone except for Bearbeth, who lay unconscious on the ground once more. Sep just stood there, her hands still in midair.
Jasif! What is the meaning of this?
Sir Askadav, this is not what it looks like. It wasn't me, it was Adder! What did you do?
Say what? Don't look at me! I was just puking my guts out over here!
Yeah, they deserve each other.
Inside my mind, you walking pile of cervine dung! What did you do to me?
Oh, well, I just, I had to make my way out somehow. I saw this wall and it was about to fall, so I just gave a little push and let me guess, that was your patience? Am I right? Boy, oh boy, do I got a good eye for these things or what? This is why we don't mess with people's minds.
Adderson, son of Gurfath, I would strangle you with my own hands if I wasn't so convinced that your brain hasn't received any oxygen in a decade!
Babe, how could you do this to me? I was willing to forgive your bizarre infatuation with this rube. I could have forgiven this offense you cast upon my house. But how dare you lie so brazenly, woman? I saw you slap my brother with my own eyes.
But I didn't want to do that. I mean, I did, but there's a perfectly sound and valid explanation for this.
Tell you later!
Adder, no! I have to...
Betrayal! A knife upon my heart and soul! This treachery shall not stand, Jasif! Guards! Fetch them!
A marabunta of guards threw itself over the runaway couple at Elbar's command. A group of them outran the rest quite easily, leaving Adder and Sep completely flanked, but not yet stopped. These guards that moved with feet light as the wind kept showing up where Adder least expected them, herding the two into one of many alleyways that surrounded the bazaar. And then they ran faster yet, forming a wall blocking the entrance to the only escape path left. Adder didn't dare break his run as he approached the spear wall. Surrounded from every angle and with a dozen guards chasing them, he could only run forward. But he didn't get impaled. The guard line in front of him separated momentaneously into two groups, letting them pass into the alley completely unharmed. One of the spearmen yelled something as Adder and Sep crossed the line, something that was definitely not Cyrnar. They regrouped in a second, closing the entrance to the alley before the rest of the guards crashed against them like a wave of helmets and spears.
Did they just...
Adder couldn't finish the sentence, for he never learned from his worst flaw. He forgot to look ahead. And so he ran headfirst into a wall, one he couldn't break with his head. One made of fur, armor, and gleaming eyes.
Boss?
The weather's changed a lot while you weren't looking, puppy eyes. I'm your boss now.
And that's where we left off.
Right.
It is. Nothing horny about that moment at all, by the way.
I empty my stream of consciousness now into the driest silence, barely able to keep a smirk away from my face at the thought of Lynn screaming at me for leaving her hanging on such a dramatic note. Lynn? No response. My theatrics must have hit deeper than I thought. It's alright, Lynn. It was just a memory. No one's coming for... When I turn around, Lynn isn't even looking at me anymore. Her face lies flat against the table. Lynn? She died! She's dead! I scared her to...
Oh, is that how you pronounce
Never mind. Slid my staff back and let her snout fall softly on the table once more.
You got some sort of Gmail notification popping up in the
That's
bottom
just
corner.
for us in the Discord.
You can see that on the Discord. You can't see it on the stream.
Yeah, so don't bring it up.
As I was saying, I slipped my staff back and let her snout fall softly on the table once more in what looks like a slightly more comfortable position, or at least one where she won't drool all over the pages and fly off the handle when she wakes up. Foolish kid. Falling asleep on the best part of the story, in front of a stranger no less. The world must have truly changed a lot since the days I was convinced that I'd rather be a normal person. Or is this some sort of ruminant compliment? Does it mean that you don't find me scary? That any half-assed attempts at basic decency I could have offered you were enough to allow yourself to rest easy around me? To annoy me with such forthright proof of inferred trust? Is that it? Are you actually capable of being cute sometimes, you bug-eyed imp?
Again, I'm glad we have the pronunciation of this stuff.
Then lets out a little sleepy whistle breath noise in response. No, of course not. You're just another dumbass without a care in the world. A bona fide mortal that's going to get me dragged into their tedious affairs. I guess it's my cue to leave then. Then again, I can't possibly leave without getting mad at you for this. Yes, I should wait until you get some proper rest, and then scold you for being a slacker. How long did this sleep thing take again? Just a few hours having Lynn look straight into my soul, and I no longer feel at ease with all these thoughts bouncing inside my head and no one to pull them out of my ears. This is why I hate mingling with mortals. I feel like decades have passed between tonight and this morning. No, it can't be. Was it really just this morning? After much rummaging around in my pockets, I finally grabbed hold of my sketch pad. I felt moved to capture the shape of the hills in the distance as dawn broke, and sure enough, the ink still looks fresh. It was most certainly today. I am back. I thought I would know heirloom like a long-lost enmity. A relative you don't want to run into, the loudest of them all. But that was far from the case. The streets were no different, but the paths now led elsewhere. The purveyors and their crowds remained ever shifting, screaming praises about all the items one could ever hope to want or need. Everything had changed and everything stayed the same. Unaware, uncaring, blissfully unbothered by my presence. Everything until...
You seem lost, traveler.
I faltered in my step, having the strangest impression. A nostalgic feeling, something that couldn't possibly exist. I felt like the fawn was addressing me.
Hey, you! I'm talking to you!
Though hope was a rare commodity in my heart, I still turned my face toward the little bluster, surely calling out to some other mark in the crowd.
Heed my words, Graven! Your silence and your hat shall not hide you from me, for I am the blood of old Sephi! Your thoughts stopped being yours alone the moment we first locked eyes.
I love how she's gone from some kid to some annoying kid.
Grave mistake. What?
Yes! I see it crystal clear! What does this amazing young gazelle want from me, you ponder? Word for word. Totally not actually looking down at me at all, but no matter. What I want is of no consequence to me or to you. I can tell from your staff that you don't hail from these lands, and from your garb that you don't come from this age. An enigma has brought you to Heirloom, Orchid of the Steppes, and muddled your heart with fear. But deep down you know, you need not solve it alone.
Unfavorable stall positioning, pitiful decoration, boorish costuming, terrible characterization. Child playing dress-up had somehow perceived me. Yeah, okay, I suppose you'll do. I'm looking for a deer, or rather whatever's left of him. Does the name Adderson ring a bell for you?
Ring a bell, you say?
A bard, then?
Thank your luck, Pilgrim. You shan't take a step further than you have, for this whisper of a great soul is so ingrained in my mind that it may as well be my own. I have a tale to tell, if you have a coin to spare.
Can I just get directions to an archive or something instead?
That'll cost you two.
Yeah, that's a bard.
We sure are back in the capital. Fine. This had better be good.
There's no finer story in all of Dakna. For if in heirloom you hear rumors of a knight, there is but one name that should ever come to mind. The Knight of the Upper Field. The hero that fought the odds and went from humble beginnings to the Star of Stardom. Adderson, the Beast Slayer. The swordless knight that changed the fate of the kingdom for the rest of eternity. Bringing peace to mortal kind and uniting the ruminants under one flag. Where didst thou cometh from? Where didst thou wend? If thou hearest mine own tale truly, then leaf, thou shouldst knoweth.
He didn't sound like that.
What?
Adder was a farmer. He didn't know half the words you said.
I knew that. I was just taking artistic licenses.
Your eye patch is on the wrong side of your artistic license.
No way! Everyone knows the knight was missing his right eye.
Everyone is wrong then.
Oh, so you're the only person in the world that knows the last thing about him. Is that it?
Basically.
Why?
I knew him.
You're kidding, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bye.
Oh, wait. What? wait. What kind of reaction is that? You really knew him?
Nope, farewell. I really should have run away right then. I wouldn't have to deal with this nonsense if I had done so. This is taking much too long. Tired of reminiscing, I peer over Lynn's side of the table. It's only now that I notice a page peeking out rather conspicuously under her nose. Are those doodles? So kids these days still like drawing, huh? Though from the way she's holding on to them even in her sleep, it's clear she'd rather eat them than let me have a look. Grab my staff and take a few tentative steps around the little miscreant, careful not to wake her up. She spent the last eternity living over a private tower of sheets, wet ink, and an empty towel of candied almonds that she bummed off me. Yes, indeed. It is I who provided the tools of the trade and ensured the continuation of her existence so she could focus on writing. I deserve to know what kind of content I'm enabling.
Oh, don't need the soup. It's made out of soup. Oh.
Undeterred, I stretch my arm toward the page she's been working on once more, trying to drag the page away from her grasp. It's almost mine. Just a little more.
I'm awake!
It's okay, it was only yaoi anyway.
So you are. Now help me up, will you?
Promise you won't rip my guts out for falling asleep?
No. Link crouches down next to me and purportedly hand me back my staff, casually shoving the sketch page behind her.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
The obvious problem seems to be that you stopped writing a while ago.
But what? No, of course I was writing everything down. I mean, I was trying to. It's not like I didn't want to write, but I've got this thing when I eat lots of sweets at once, and everything goes wobbly, and it's even worse when I'm tired, and...
Goodness sake, Lynn, if you're not feeling well, you should just say that.
No, I'm all right. I swear, I can handle this. We're doing something important here for the honor of my family and stuff.
Your family. That's right. There are people waiting for you. Look at me, preaching about past mistakes when the president is staring me in the eye. I can't believe I forgot something so basic. Let's just leave the story here, Lynn. Your parents must be worried sick about you.
No! Look, I'm awake. So awake. I don't have a curfew or anything like that. Just get me some coffee and I'll keep writing all night.
No. I have things to do when the sun's out. I don't plan to add taught a kid that crunch is any good for development to the list of crimes I've committed today. Come on, little rebel. I'll walk you home.
I can't.
You can't.
I've been thinking a lot about it, and I can't decide if I like it or Gilba better.
Sure, Peter has that morbid, age gap, forbidden love-ish kind of appeal, but Gilbert has so much chemistry that I believe it could actually happen, you know?
Told you.
I also think that Hayseed has a lot of potential.
I mean... Sepena.
Oh, you mean Sepena.
Basic, but I can't deny it has a great ring to it.
I mean, I ship it.
You're basic. Lynn doesn't reply. She merely sinks her head farther into the desk as she scribbles something. I wait for the eventual comebacks. I know she's meticulously composing in her mind, but it never comes. Instead...
Wait! Don't go! I'm not lying, see? We can't stop here. I don't want to go until you finish the story. Don't go! Please! I'm going to write even faster. Stay a little longer.
A different question begins to take shape in my mind. Lynn, there's something you're not telling me.
Gee, there are a lot of things I'd love to tell you that you don't want to hear. You'll have to be more specific.
About you. Lynn stares at me for a good long while. Eventually, she returns to her doodles.
You don't want to know that either.
What would you know what I want, brat?
I knew you'd say that too, but it's still better than the alternative. Trust me, it's for your sake.
Nonsense! I know gazes don't work like that. You're just deciding what's best for me on your own. How are you supposed to know what I need when I don't have a clue about it?
I thought that was what the last chapter was all about. That we all need friends because you won't ever know yourself as well as you think you do.
We're not... Take your eyes off my thoughts already and go do something better with your fleeting life.
So, you really don't want me to write anymore?
No! Let's just get back to writing, yes. I tell you the story, you write. That's what we came here to do, not waste time chit-chatting and lazing about pretending to be friends. Lynn puts a hand on the bridge of her nose. I am very nearly about to head for a bridge and swim to another town myself.
Okay. Look, I don't know if I'm skilled enough to deal with... I don't think I even have a name for whatever this is. Let's just stop freaking out for a minute and talk about...
The tip of the staff is just sturdy enough not to be to split as it hits the ground. My scream is the wooden echo that bounces all over the library. You want to know the story of your ancestor? You write. That was the deal. There's nothing left in the room but silence. I know the way Lynn must be looking at me, even through my turned back. I know the way I would be looking at myself, at least. I barely dare turn my snout towards her when I hear her stretching her arms over the pages.
Wow, that's so... Oh, that's so scary. All right, so what was it? Who dares hurt Aina? What are we fighting now? Did the Makadar find Adder at last? Was it the moneylenders with the knives and stuff?
No, not yet. We can't talk about that yet. I feel like there's someone I'm forgetting.
Someone with thumbs, horns, and an overly helpful disposition, apparently.
Yes, you're right. That is just the person we're missing.
The prophecy?
What prophecy?
My prophecy!
I thought this was a non-profit venture.
So about that Sepena content.
Let's just get this over with.
Right, chapter 4. The importance of faking the virtues that you lack.
Hell yeah.
Not that far away from the fateful encounter where we left off, missed perhaps by a matter of minutes, linguistic skills, and general irrelevance to her life, there walked a goat. Or certainly attempted to. Though the bustling streets were yet to know her, ordinary as she looked, caked in red step dust and dressed like a mere caravan keeper, history would remember her in a completely different light.
Zhao! That's Zhao, right? I knew she was going to be important!
Well, yes, I wouldn't bother mentioning the name of anyone that wouldn't prove to be relevant later on.
That's not callous or anything.
Indeed. I'm glad you understand. The most remarkable thing about Zhao, though, is we didn't truly get to explore the first time we met her was, you see, that special feature that set her apart from everyone else was the fact that she was so short she wasn't so much standing out as standing under. A petite ibex with horns so curled and large that the combination would have looked rather comical had Servine society not been obsessed with the way it was with horn size. To the average deer, she would have surely seemed a rather formidable opponent. Seen from any other, less distorted angle, however, the goat would have been a tiny girl in an infinite city, marching to the beat of her own drum. And her timing could not have been any worse.
Yay! Find them! Find those traitors! They can't have gone very far!
Excuse me,
The size of this newcomer was so below the Akazorian average, in fact, that she was just about a whole head of... That she was just about a whole head short of reaching the necks of most locals around her, appropriately equipped only to address open collars and high belts.
Beasts!
No comment.
I saw them! It was a pack of beasts!
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
You can...
Golems! It's an army of golems!
One can tell me how you arrived to the Temple of Hit?
Out of the way!
Catching an elbow with her face as she traversed a panicked crowd ended up being, therefore, a matter of statistics. The goat lost her footing and plummeted backward towards the ground. Instead of flagstones and a nasty new chip in her horns, the girl found herself falling in what felt like a prickly nest of some sort.
You're going to have to speak a little louder than that for anyone to hear you today, lassie.
Lassie?
Still stunned, she slowly dragged her eyes up from her pine needle cushion, soon meeting the two golden eyes of that sat like amber drops under a helmet. Her head stopped spinning long enough to finally spot the giant tree amongst the deer.
Bisected! That was bisected just now, right? No, that's not... I mean, I understood it. Your speech was perfect. A respectable sibling. I'm so sorry. I should know better than to question the wisdom of a child of 2.
You would be the first one, really.
Anyway, I'm so glad you're here. I couldn't even find my way past the market. This place is so different from home, and there are so many people, and everyone walks so fast that I...
The goat squeaked in terror as she was lifted into the air by the collar of her vest, but the fright soon came to pass as she understood it was simply to be moved toward the giant tree man's shoulder.
Why don't you take up girls in the marketplace? Hop on up before you get trampled, darling.
By the collar.
Come on, I'll give you a lift.
Yes.
Please, I wouldn't dare impose on a sibling like that. I don't mind being a little lost. I brought enough money to pay for a guide, see?
The goat opened her brimming purse eagerly, flashing the result of months of work to the crowd around her without a second thought.
Oh, she's fresh off the
You
truck.
have no idea how lucky you are that I found you first.
Illigrab sucked air in through every crevice in his bark, making his mustache wiggle along a pressed smile.
So, the Temple of Irib, right? I was just headed there myself. Oh, what a place! Always a fire to put out for the little brother, like right now. I mean, there will be one going on when we get there. It's a lot less concerning than it sounds.
You know, with all the witch burning and
Do
everything.
apna there, Zhao. Zhao will do.
Really? How very fitting for the occasion. Hey, you wouldn't happen to be looking for a job here in the city, Miss Temple. I hear a vacancy's just opened up.
The ibex moving to occupy the space left by Adder, all the pieces but one had been set at last on Heirloom's board. It may be wise henceforth to return our attention to the man of the hour. To fully do so this time, however, we would have to submerge ourselves in all 5 of his senses, for all 6 of them would be rather important to remember. Taste, sad, with a tongue drier than the ground above his head, and a stomach bereft of all food as usual, curiously enough, by choice for once. Touch, sadder, miserable as it were, missing the chance of an eternity of mental hedonism that he gave up a couple of hours ago, now limited only to the feeling of a cold seat under his tail and a noose still embracing his neck quite uncomfortably. Smell, worse yet, constantly clogged up by the persistent yet distant scent of something awful that he wished would just disappear, and a dozen foreign herbs and oils that he wasn't familiar with burning along the walls to cover it up. Hearing, worryingly bad, a cacophony of water running constantly in the background, creaking metal and light breathing coupled with the occasional banging of something against a nearby wall. The sense itself good enough. Sight, other than the usual disability he faced in his day-to-day, well, how do I put this? Through many a talk well into the night, Illigrab had done his best to help Adder understand that his experience as a stag in Akathar was rather a fortunate one, even though his own social standing within the Icane themselves is not the greatest. He understood in principle and in matter that his perspective in life was a very limited one, and he kept discovering the limits of his knowledge with every new friend he made. And they remained friends because he was sorry, and he got better. It didn't matter how funny and obvious some concepts seemed miles and years before he met them. He knew words and jokes hurt others, and he appreciated that his friends would chew him out if he ever forgot and said so and so.
So.
Oh, hello.
Wow.
Sorry, I need a moment.
Oh my God, Stoker.
Listen. One, y'all know what I'm like, and you keep inviting me. Two,
Chat, we need some sprays for Stoker.
Maxie is doing this on purpose, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
I mean, you're not wrong, but
Three.
You don't have to say it out loud.
Three. Do any of you actually disagree with me? I rest my fucking case.
Am I spraying me just for Stoker?
It's because they know what you're thinking, Rick.
Oh, hi, GC.
Oh, and here comes GC to shame me further.
Yes, I am. No, I couldn't sleep. I had to watch this. This is good. But yeah, you just saw The Last Wish, and now you're doing this again. Come on.
Listen, look at that guy behind her.
Oh,
that is
face.
That is like the let me do it for you, Kermit.
Oh, damn it.
Right there.
Joker, what have you done? Oh my God.
You're literally killing yourself. Good job.
Yeah, listen, everything for the bit.
Okay. He was, however, quite wary of accidentally coming up with any so-so-and-so that could get him chewed in around this new, unfamiliar company of fluffy creatures with glowing eyes, spiky ears, and spiky teeth. A company that had so kindly seated the terrified stag at the helm of their empty marble table and surrounded him with nothing but rows of peculiarly moist, pearly white smiles. And though, yes, he kind of wished he could travel back in time to 5 minutes ago when he was all nice and unconscious, hoping for swords and not teeth, it was that sixth sense I mentioned that made him take a hand to his burns and keep his butt glued to the seat, knowing it wasn't just his neck on the menu. Better start making friends. Fast. Let's just yell it out.
I'm Anderson, son of Garfather.
You don't need to scream, pup. I know who you are.
Oh, you do?
That's right. You are a very lucky deer. One of the few grazers to ever board my ship.
She's even prettier when she smiles.
Alive, noted Adder's back brain almost immediately. But that wasn't the bit that truly captured his attention.
Hold on. This is a ship?
As it turned out, the dining table wasn't the only marble piece in the room. Both the matte ground and radiant slopes that curved into the ceiling seemed as if carved out of a pink veined pearl, turned deep blue by the darkness and warm yellow by the candlelight. Though such a sight wouldn't have been out of place for the palaces inside Adder's imagination, the air inside was so biting that it seemed bleak night had come early. It might have been colder yet if it weren't for all the flames illuminating the room and the rugs. Fur rugs. Not fluffy blankets like those made out of bush feathers, actual hides. Far too long to belong to any type of ruminant Adder was aware of, but little did that change their effect.
It ain't quite what I expected.
Yeah? It doesn't get much nicer than this, living in the sea. Though, I'd rather be moored just about anywhere else. I'll give you that.
Creature punctuated her complaint with a sharp huff, clearly more bothered by the odd underlying smell than Adder was. Moored, the buck repeated internally. He had no idea what that word meant, but he had a hunch that the vessel wasn't precisely moving. He planted his hooves firmly on the floor, trying to feel the ship rock, letting the beast's growls and the beating of the wall fade into the rhythm of the whispers of running water somewhere below him. Wherever they were, it didn't sound like the sea, and that was everything Adder needed to glimpse the faintest ray of hope.
Well, I don't want to make y'all feel like I don't appreciate the way y'all saved my behind back there, but I got a couple of friends waiting in line to kill me next, so I reckon I should get...
No way. You're really going to leave after all the lengths we've gone to into making you dinner?
There was a brief disconnect between Adder's stomach growling loudly at the mention of food, and his brain's best attempt to spell out to him who the main dish would be. His so-called new boss turned toward one of the other creatures and growled something. Unlike Ina's abrupt sounds, hers had a complex and rhythmic quality and inflection to them that made them feel connected and purposeful. The crewmate soon came back, carrying a fruit bowl filled with radishes, Adder ventured, from the chunks of fresh turf, roughly carved out of the land with roots and decaying leaves sprouting out of their sides.
I am so amused by this guy's miserable face.
As if to finish garnishing the dish, a maggot crawled out of the soil and onto the table, only to get politely pierced by the claws of a crew member and placed on top of the radish again.
I have to admit that we're not exactly well-versed in deer diets, but I was told that you were rather fond of roots and tubers.
No, you got that right, ma'am. There ain't nothing in the world my belly loves more than good old roots and tubers. Mm-hmm.
Good. Eat them.
Oh, I'm eating them all right. I'm eating them even if it's the last thing I do today.
You're still not eating them.
Well, of course not. It's poor manners eat for the host.
Not where we hail from, pup. In fact, none of us are going to have a single bite until you're done.
Yeah, no, that's the part that worries me, actually.
Creature sitting right in front of Adder cocked her head to the side in confusion, then back to follow Adder's line of sight. The row of frothy mouths that waited behind her vanished into the whistles and gargles.
Please excuse my crew's manners. We haven't had any fulfilling meal in a while, so they're a little on edge.
She turned to growl something again, prompting a general whine. Stronger exchange ensued, making the crew around her scutter away between mutters and huffs.
You have nothing to worry about while I'm around, of course. Perks of being the captain. I get to keep all the best bits for myself.
Well, it sure is reassuring to hear you got a taste for quality food here. That must be a real shredded venison, because I'm nothing but the scrappiest of scraps.
Only 2 people remained seated around the table, and one just decided to stand up from her chair.
So, are you going to eat your deer food now?
You know what? I think I'll pass. It ain't you, it's the noose, see? Won't let any food through at all. Saved from the paws of justice just to fall into the maws of starvation.
The tension in the room was so thick, you could have sliced it with a knife and thrown it toward Adder's face to hopefully make him shut up. Because if one thing was clear by the proximity of the captain's snarl to his snout, it's that she wasn't going to let that happen on its own. The fanged creature yanked Adder towards her by the long end of his noose, intent on dredging every last sound out of him.
You're going to have to try a little harder to fool me, dear. How did you find the way to Heirloom? Who do you work for?
You, apparently? I asked for directions along the way. Is this some sort of trick question?
His makeshift leash couldn't stand a second tug. The edge of her claws cut right through the rope. Before Adder could even blink, he found himself pushed back into a seat with the creature looming above him, poised to rip every last tendon from his bones.
I know rot when I smell it. I was told we had to make sure a yellow deer would get hanged, not a... What are you, some kind of jackal? Pitiful.
Even though any movement could have brought his death about faster, even though the proximity of those teeth could have curdled his blood and rendered him frozen on the spot.
I don't know where you learned to make your ruminant sounds, Jackal Cub, but they taught you completely wrong.
The sight instead felt so familiar.
I mean, you know, I learned my A's and my R's from my mom and pa, but to be completely square with you, I don't think they ever really got half of what I said either. At least I can blame it on my accent when I'm an heirloom.
Creature's ears flicked forward. She glanced around as if wondering where his fear had gone, then shrank further back yet, sheathing her teeth behind her lips.
Explain this monpa to me.
You know, it's when a deer and a doe love each other very much, and then, you know, they have kids, like parents do. I'm not sure how y'all,
Captain took a long look at Adder as he awkwardly bumped his fists together, peering at him from his blushed face to his jittery hooves, and then back up again. Her nose twitched. Not satisfied with the results of whatever it was she was doing, she curled her index finger into her thumb, and then snapped against Adder's horn.
Ouch! Hey, that's not very nice!
With her free hand, she grabbed Adder's mouth and snapped it open, way past the point anyone's jaw should ever extend.
She could be friends with Bearbooth. Sheesh.
Please, my face. Flat teeth! You're an actual deer after all. You're just like half dead or something. Oh, you should have told me, you scallophead. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so funny. No wonder you weren't scared. I bet deep down you were all like, oh, this Echo Wolf doesn't even know how litter making works. Am I right? Right? Come on, Pop, you can laugh. It was great.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was, 'cause I totally know what any of those words mean.
Hey, you have to do the thing. Do the thing again.
Which thing would that be now?
The words. Do the funny thing to the words when you speak.
Oh, you mean my accent? It's the darnest thing, ain't it? Chantere's finest. I'd say it's a knee slapper, but if I slapped my knees with these flappers, I may just have to crawl the way back home.
Right? That's not what the other deer looked like. You're so thin I could snap those brittle arms of yours in two with a single bite.
Are we seeing the same arms?
What a meager meal you'd be.
I mean, his arms aren't any bigger than normal. It's just his hands are like...
Absolutely monstrous. They make his upper arms just look like twigs. Thin trail of drool slid down one of the creature's sharp teeth onto Adder's shoulder. The deer's apple bobbed up and down his arid throat, praying that it wouldn't become the next focus of attention.
Couldn't agree more, ma'am. There's so little me left, it's a wonder I'm not see-through yet. I don't suppose anyone's told you about this funny little thing called mange.
Though the creature's expression remained unreadable as Adder listed the many reasons why he would not be, in fact, apt for consumption, it was clear that there was a shift in sorts in her general demeanor. She had loosened up somehow. A toothful half-grin decorated her face by the end of his spiel.
And that's why eating venison would lead to the end of your whole species, so please don't kill me.
You're such a weird little deer pup.
It's a good thing?
Oh, yeah. I don't need to know many grazers to tell you're a strange one. You make me want to sink my fangs into your neck and bite you open just to know how deep the weirdness runs. But not in an eat-you way. That'd be a waste. Do you get what I mean?
No, not at all.
I mean, I want to, like, chew through you, but not consume you. Does that make sense?
I just want to rip you open, but not like in a murder way.
I want to do a vor on you, but like a soft vor.
Alright, chat, now you can spray Rick.
Yeah.
I accept your sprays. I deserve it.
No, I suppose you wouldn't. Maybe you'd be more than a pile of bones.
There we go. That's the stuff.
Oh, God.
Hey, that sounds pretty great, doesn't it? Lucky you, I found you a name. From this day forward, and for all cycles to come, you shall be known as Bones.
Afraid I already got my own.
Bones.
No, you don't.
Yep.
No, you don't.
Bones. Nice to meet you.
Man, you're a howl. I can see why Aina wanted
Your
to
name
become
is
so
Sin.
much.
Answer me, Sin.
Aina? She wanted me here? Hold up. Aina was the one who called you back there then, right? Where is she?
Don't worry, puppy. You'll be back with my sister before you know it. She's having a little break after our welcoming party, but we still wanted you and Dad in on the family dinner.
Sister? Dad? You mean...
You know, our father.
So that was Adder moving right next to a wolf on the board. A change in management, a rejected turnip, and a planned family reunion. But the boy hadn't arrived in this place alone, of course. Unbeknownst to him, the intermittent beating noise that he kept hearing somewhere on the other side of the wall was that of two long, crimped horns being rammed desperately against the smallest cracks in the marble. The smooth, pearl-like wall threatened to shatter a soul in a million pieces before its owner could cause any significant damage to the brig where she was being kept.
No! No, 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 it can't end like this. This is not how today was supposed to go. I can't get eaten now of all times. This is not... Get it together, Sep. You're starting to sound like Adder. I'm going to skin that sidling piece of rotten Bracket's tail and wear it as a wig! So, you're trapped in some kind of cell with no way out. Big deal. This is basically your natural habitat. Worst case scenario, you burn this place to the ground, change your name, and go live amongst the goats where guilt can't find you. No, Sep, we talked about this. You can't just burn away all your problems. That only creates more of them. So you agree we're doomed then? Too. Gods, I don't know why I put up with you. You need help.
Sep slid down the wall until she fell on her butt, nurturing the terrible headache she had brought upon herself.
On that, we agree.
It wasn't easy, alas, but she finally gave up on her half-hearted attempts at splintering up her horns and resigning herself to the fact that the only kind of help she would get was the self variety. The absolute worst. No one left to blame if that one failed. The only light source in the entire room was a faint glow that seeped in through the same door frame, the same crevice that carried Adder squawking to her, and the other slew of worrying noises. As her eyes got used to the dimness, the half-light became bright enough to reveal that she was locked in some kind of storage room, full of armor suits, metal crates, nail cages, a pile of oddly shaped amphorae, a hammock, and a mop. This minigame is currently only functional with mouse input.
Minigame. Hidden object game.
6, 7, 8 full armor suits, complete with spears and a mount of detachable antlers piled under them. Sep wasn't an expert on smithery or armor by any measure, but knowing a thing or two about getting arrested and having wide access to the keep, she definitely was quite knowledgeable on what a city guard's uniform was supposed to look like. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure the beast blended in among the rest of the guards when the time had come. And someone had gone to much greater lengths to make sure nobody would be looking at them too closely, clearly. The amphorae piled in the corner of the brig were very reminiscent of the commercial Basascaran pottery Sep had the chance of reading about in the temple's library back when she was still welcome there. The vases definitely looked like they were made to transport liquids, most likely spirits or oil. Sep gawked at the tool. It looked like a mop of sorts. It was a mop, surely, even though it used some sort of tightly compacted fur instead of seaweed fibers like Acathorian mops.
It's a Swiffer.
Sep had heard about the mops. She had even seen servants use them in years where the rain had been so extraordinarily bountiful that the argillaceous grounds of Heirloom essentially sweated all the excess water that had leaked out of the lakes and rivers around the city. Sep observed the mop further. She didn't actually know what the purpose of a mop was, but in the brief period she thought about it, she came up with at least 10 new uses that history had never even considered until this moment.
Tell me you're privileged without telling me you're privileged.
Then you had the snails, of course. A dozen or so woven snail cages hanging from hooks on the roof or piled up wherever they fit. It was only then that Sep realized that the nasty little things had been through their enclosures and slimed their way through literally every corner.
What? How dare you call them nasty? Snails are the cutest creatures on Knock.
On a scale from creepy to wet, the brig was dark, slightly moist, and overrun with snails.
This is disgraceful. Slander! My Sep loves snails and thinks they're adorable.
Well, Sep tried very hard not to think about how much she loved sitting on trails of snail slime as she mustered the last of her willpower to settle her stomach and continue to search for anything that could help her break out. Hung up rather precariously between two metal crates tilted away from each other, a hammock occupied the right corner of the brig from the door. Sep didn't dare come any closer, noticing the weight making the fabric sag, until her eyes got used enough to the darkness in the far end of the room to reveal that its occupant was some sort of extremely spiky cabbage conspicuously wrapped in blankets.
Oh.
Sep had no idea what twist of fate had brought them together twice in barely one day after keeping them away for a whole decade, but had the porcelain-skinned Smith lay completely immobile with her green head curled down and back turned towards Sep. That old filthy cape was still attached to her neck.
Weren't you supposed to be in Burbus's palace or something? How could the beast get you too?
Nothing. Not even the faintest rustle.
Aina, come on! This is no time to sleep. They're going to devour that sweet little apprentice of yours if you don't get up right now and break us out of here!
Ignoring favors and requests wasn't exactly what we call out of character for Aina.
Some all-powerful cursed being you are. Always looking the other way while someone eats your boyfriend.
Ignoring such provocations, however. With a level of apprehension she rarely felt towards anything in her life, Seth put a hand on Aina's shoulder and turned her whole body around. Aina's expression remained frozen in complete neutrality. Her eyes were wide open, set far beyond anywhere they could see. Seth drew a hand to her mouth, barely holding back a gasp at the sight. She snapped a finger in front of Aina's eyes, trying to prompt some sort of reaction from her oldest friend. Nothing. The gazelle turned around for a moment and took a very, very deep breath.
She's not really deceased. She's not a person, no more than you are. You know this. Aina, I know you're immortal, God's sake. Don't worry. I'll let her something out.
Aina remained completely motionless. There was an empty look in her eyes that no promise would erase. But Sep knew that it could be changed. She had seen it in action a very, very long time ago.
I bet it's his fault somehow. Or mine, perhaps? I did ask you to make sure he wouldn't do anything stupid. Perhaps that's too great an undertaking even for an immortal furry fossil like you.
Sep's eyes narrowed into a line as she pondered her own words.
Was this part of the curse? Will my body and soul turn to stone as well when everyone forgets me? It looks to me like you have somehow managed to have far more friends in exile than I do in misery, Miss Ghost.
The ground rocked slightly under their feet.
All right, let's start there. Ghost. Let us define a ghost as someone who, despite having their connection to the Hatsa completely severed, refuses to die a physical death. Oblivion is an ordinary enough fate for a cruel and unusual punishment. But this cannot be the case, because then you would simply not exist. You would not live in the memories of any creature the way you do, or if you did, you certainly wouldn't last a day. But there is such a thing as ghosts that rise to prominence and have their memories stored collectively. A presence leaving hoofprints in the snow for travelers, or a cloud in the sky that announces bountiful rain. Small gods. You wouldn't be exactly dead, in any case. But quite honestly, you don't seem to be alive as far as I can tell. This is lifeless, even for you. But Illigrab said you are not physically capable of dying, be it wounds or old age. So I guess you're just kind of indisposed.
Sep nodded to herself, content with her conclusions thus far.
This must, therefore, be an intermittent state, a dichotomy between being lifeless and lifelike, only decided by something that keeps you connected to all of us. Something like a pulse that keeps you active, but that you're not receiving now. A bond tethering you to the Hatsa, surely.
What you talking about, Sep?
The word golem barged into Sep's mind quite uncomfortably, but she couldn't find any good reasons to kick it out of there. Now that didn't look like fangs and rippling muscles under Aina's torn-up shirt, the far scarier possibility that she had something to do with the fact they were both locked up in some kind of beast den, while Adder was still outside.
Suppose it is a physical malfunction. Something must have knocked your connection out of place. This would mean not only can you be hurt, but killed. You just don't realize so. Illigrab would be wrong then. Suppose that it is a matter of the soul instead. Whatever bond has been keeping you alive is failing. That would mean you cannot function without the external source that is providing you the power you require to function. Just like a golem.
Sep fixed her eyes on Adder's oversized scarf. Then on the face that she looked up to as a child, now more at peace than she had ever seen her before. Her face truly looked nothing like the emotionless marble mask Sep had seen on the doll servants Taylor had so adored, and yet not a single breath came out of Aina's nose. Her skin felt cold to the touch, like alabaster. She was obviously gone. Sep slipped her right hand into Aina's shirt, following the deep plunging line of her collar, where traditional wisdom would have placed both a heart and a golem's core.
For your sake, I hope I'm wrong, Aina.
Sep's eyes began glowing blue against the darkness of the room.
But I'd better not be, for my own.
So you're saying you're Aina's sister?
That I am.
The patron's daughter?
I could be. Describe the patron.
Red, angry, Aina's father.
Oh, yeah. I am the daughter of the patron, too. I'm sure they'll join us soon enough. You can just ask them if you don't believe me.
Oh, no. It ain't like I don't believe you, ma'am. I simply didn't know.
You didn't know what?
Ekka's eyes narrowed into a line. Her neck and snout, on the other hand, seemed to telescope towards Adder.
You have heard the thunder, haven't you, Bones?
Before Adder could damn himself with another word, an orange blur flew into the door, across the room, and into the opposite wall. Door included. The stunned Wolf and Deer needed a few more seconds to realize that it was Sepp on the ground now, looking like a cartwheel at him, gone very wrong. They all turned their heads to the source of the impact. A trail of smoke zigzagged from the darkness beyond the newly remodeled threshold, filling the room with the acrid smell of burnt fur and blood. Purple-eyed Shadow followed suit. The beast gathered enthusiastically around the doorless brig, and the smith plodding out of it.
Well done, Dad! You managed to fix...
The wolf's joy was cut dead short when she finally noticed Aina's whole body stiffing up at the side of the rest of the crew.
Oh no, not again.
Aina leapt towards the closest crewmate, biting and walloping whoever had the misfortune of standing in her range. Here was a one-woman band, playing an impromptu concerto of barks and whines and all sorts of pained noises.
Sis, be nice! We got your deer back in one piece!
Being well acquainted with this kind of overstimulated Aina starting a brawl situation, but not with the basics of first aid, Adder carefully grabbed Sepp's body and dragged it under the table.
Sepp, darling, you all right?
That's the last time I do anything for myself ever.
What happened?
I was right. That happened.
The table cracked and quivered as Aina and the beast exchanged blows and somersaulted over it, threatening to crumble entirely over the ruminants' heads.
Dad! Tell her to quit it!
Adder followed the voice quizzically, wondering if perhaps Pertok had somehow wandered in while he was distracted. But no, there was no trace of the old man. Even Sepp looked just as disoriented as he was, though she had a much better excuse.
Dad, I'm talking to you! Do something!
Captain Snarl peeked over the edge of the table, followed by an arm firmly clamped between Aina's fangs. Sepp and Adder exchanged a panicked look.
Drop it!
Does Adder say it or does Sepp say it?
I feel like Sepp would be more likely to say it.
Knock it off, or I'll give you a good knocking on the head, you fratricidal knitting hammer!
Aina moved her eyes toward the red-haired gazelle that just dared scream at her. Then her face swiveled slowly towards Adder, who was in turn looking at the same woman in fear and awe. After just a fraction of a second, he started nodding at full speed.
Come on, Aina! Is that any way to treat your family?
Adder's only iris darted toward the gazelle, as if trying to push its way out of his eye. For her part, Sepp puffed up her chest and gave Aina a stern look. Confused as she was, but not really sure she wanted to know what the hay was going on, Aina opened her jaw unexpectedly obediently. Her teeth made the ugliest sound as they separated from her sister arm, leaving a trail of blood and slobber behind her. Adder felt so queasy he barely managed to fight the need to fall on his butt at the sight. Sepp audibly gulped, almost jumping out of her skin when the captain put a hand on her shoulder.
Thanks, Dad. I knew I could count on you.
Ekka walked away nonchalantly, like such a gory scene hadn't just happened.
Yeah, that was mighty kind of you. Aw.
Don't try me, Adderson.
Oh, I get it. It can't be easy being a father.
It won't be for you if you don't shut your snout this instant and let me focus on my role.
I'd say you got it pretty spot on. Sheesh.
Aina moved her eye toward her apprentice as she wiped her mouth with her arm. He mouthed a relieved, "Thank you, sorry, got no clue what's going on either." Aina took one last look at the room and Sepp and Adder and the creatures watching her every move. She seemed severely unimpressed with it all. Without another sound, she grabbed the door that she had sent flying, walked into the brig, put the door back into its place, sending a very clear message to her audience. Both ruminants and beasts stayed at a standstill for quite some time before anyone felt safe enough to breathe and move as they usually would. But once they were over that scare, oh, there was nothing in Dock Now that could stop the wolves from celebrating. They played music, clapped, laughed, and poured unknown drinks into large rusty metal cups that they extended to each other. It wasn't quite so easy to cheer, drink, and relax for the significantly less bite-proof deer and gazelle, however. Even so, Adder eventually helped Sepp up from under the table once it finally became obvious that Aina wouldn't chase anyone else, legs quivering like they could collapse at any moment. Surely noticing their lack of cheering, Aina's sister slowly back to them, carrying a couple of extra mugs meant for a guest that they would have never dared refuse. Adder stuck his nose in the cup exploratorily, only to get his snout whacked away by Sepp.
That could have gone better, eh? Whoever said a wolf's bark is worse than their bite never met Aina.
No, Aina's a big old sweetheart. If she gives you little nibbles, it just means she likes you. That or her teeth hurt. Maybe she's just bored. Anyway, trust me, if she'd meant to bite you, you wouldn't have come out alive from that one.
Adder didn't understand the look Sepp was sending in his direction, but it certainly was a look.
That's very reassuring, to hear she wasn't even trying to kill me then. I guess it runs in the family.
The tall beast raised her cup to take a long sip from her drink, giving Adder a look at the arm that was still completely covered in blood.
Still, you may want to do something about that.
Eka looked up from her mug, finally sparing a quick gander towards the incredibly concerning injury.
Oh yeah, you're right. Someone should do something about this. Well, am I gonna have to lick it clean myself, you peck of sea mutts?
One of the beasts barked something rather meekly, and his sister angrily barked back. The barks derailed into a whole screaming contest once more that kept Sepp's eyes and ears looking surprisingly alert.
You getting any of what they're saying? Any clues while we're here?
I wish, but no. All I can gather is that they speak some sort of guttural, gargled dribble with minced bits of Bazoktet in it, like every other language I know. It's not like I'm trying to listen to their words, however.
Sepp raised her eyebrows at Adder as she tilted her head toward the pack. Adder mouthed, "Oh," as the idea took form in his mind. He squinted his eye dramatically toward the beast, focusing all of his attention on their eyes.
Bark, bark, woof, bark.
Well, you tell him.
They were saying something about having you lick her.
Lick her wounds, right?
Listen, Adder, buddy, listen. If you don't want to, I'm willing to take one for the team.
That's different.
Sepp glanced quietly at the broken plates on the floor.
She did bring you dinner first.
You were all meant to be part of the dinner, in fact.
Both Adder and Sepp jumped in place. The tall beast seemed none the wiser to their horror.
Do you have any idea how long we've spent preparing for tonight's party, Dad? The great Aina has finally been returned to us after 30 cycles. Nobody could be missing in this reunion. Or at least, nobody that fit inside the ship. We'll eat and we'll dance and we'll sing under the stars until we lose our minds. I made sure to gather enough snails for the whole crew. It's gonna be a crazy night. We'll show you grazers what a partying beast looks like.
Eka grabbed Adder's hands and started whipping them up and down as she dragged him in some sort of improvised dance.
And then we'll take over the city and feast some more. They won't even know what ate them.
Adder lost grip and accidentally got sent flying against the brick wall. A shuffle in the adjoined room. A single purple eye peeked into the dining room after hearing the commotion, and widened upon seeing Adder laying on the ground. The door swung open. Before Aina could rush to his side, however, her sister craned her enormous neck toward him and picked him up by the horns.
What's wrong? You're smelling a little scared there, pup. It wasn't the brawl, was it? Am I walking too quietly for you? I heard it makes deer nervous, so I brought some clickety boots I can wear while you're here, if it helps.
The tall beast pumped her knuckles together and clicked her tongue, poorly imitating the sound of clopping hooves. Needless to say, Adder remained frozen in shock.
Ooh,
Just
maybe
like
I
that.
shouldn't have mentioned the feast part. But don't worry, we don't plan on eating all the deer. They'll just eat the bad ones. I hear you have a surplus of those.
How will you know who is who?
Don't worry, Bones. We'll know.
The beast's toothy snout contorted into what surely seemed like a comforting smile to her. She grew tired of the effort soon enough.
How can I get it into the grazers' heads that they're safe and allowed to breathe around us, sis? I don't think our sense of humor is connecting.
Aina barely shifted her eyes towards her sister. Now that she'd realized the danger in leaving his apprentice alone, the smith had repositioned herself in the corner of the room, closely watching his every move, hackles raised and fists ready to meet whoever even attempted to sniff the air around her. Unbothered by Aina's attempts to look menacing, the tall wolf growled something softly, almost conciliatory. All she got for her effort was a fierce snarl. Whatever it was she said, Aina wouldn't have it at all.
So you're still not down for tonight,
The beast's tail swept from side to side.
Bones, come here.
Yes?
I bet my sister is still mad at us because she doesn't understand why she wasn't allowed to fetch you when you were hanging by the neck.
Oh, that'd make two of us.
See, she wanted to jump into the crowd for you, with a lot of knives. Tried to bludgeon one of my poor littermates to death, she did, thinking they were a guard.
The beast pointed toward one of the canines, who let out a whine as they rubbed the back of their bandaged head. Adder didn't need a translation for that one.
Would Aina killing everyone in the plaza and exposing our mission have made you happy?
No?
Right? She didn't need to do anything to begin with. You showed the wits of a fox and fended for yourself as long as you could. And when you couldn't fight alone anymore, dear fox, tell me, who saved you?
You did.
God, where's Ray?
That's right.
That's true.
We did. Our pack.
The wolf pulled away from an increasingly terrified adder, standing to her full height in the middle of the room just to twirl around for Aina.
Look at these ear tufts, sis. Look at them. Hear this raspy, dreamy voice. Who else could have a bumpy snout like this? Teeth so sharp, fur so fluffy. Who would dare call you sis over and over?
Aina's frown just turned deeper. She remained unimpressed.
So confused.
Hey, Bones! Tell her who I am.
You want me to tell her who you are?
That's right. I want you to tell her all about this.
Well, what's the deal with this one, you ask?
You've never heard of the Herald of the Storm? The Scourge of Alar? The Fangs of Hector?
Tell her, guys! Tell her!
A deep, tense silence filled the room.
Oh, my crew don't actually speak a word of Cyrnar, but thanks for the sentiment. It's Eka!
That Eka?
That Eka!
Which Eka?
Tesseka! The one and only! Two names! What the
hell is happening?
Oh, okay. Okay, no. We need to bring it down a notch. I don't have the lungs for this anymore.
The bark started sounding suspiciously like Snickers.
You really have to quit eating raw snails, Captain.
Back off, whelp. Don't embarrass me in front of my family.
You know what would be embarrassing? Dropping dead from lungworms.
Not the time, whelp.
Is that really what they're saying? They seem kinda goofy, don't they?
Goofy? Goofy? Adder, have you heard any of the things she just said?
Of course
Yeah,
I
it's
heard,
goofy.
and I've seen them too. Who do you think had to wait in a room full of beasts all on his own while you got to hang out with Aina?
Aina kept turning her head between the pack of wolves barking nonsense and the two idiots glaring daggers at each other and mouthing words for no discernible reason.
I'm not going to die from eating a few snails.
I'm just saying, they're a little less scary than I thought they'd be. That's all.
So help me, Adderson.
Fine. I guess we can just find ourselves a new Eka when you...
Everyone in the room turned around to look at Aina, who, in turn, seemed just about ready to start another fight. Everyone except for Eka.
Yeah. I get it now.
With a long, tired sigh, the driving emotion behind which nobody could even start to decipher, Eka meandered all the way across the room toward her sister, and then kneeled down next to her. All the sea wolves followed her lead, kneeling down alongside her. Eka motioned them to rise up again.
It's not what you expected, is it? Not me, not the ship, not this whole thing. It never is. And the fact that you've been expecting it for so long probably only makes this stink all the more. You of all people would understand, right? The sea is always different. But it's the same sea, after all.
Ada's eyebrows started to crease her forehead. Eka let out a short chuckle, realizing that whatever the metaphor was meant to imply, it wasn't really coming through.
I know we arrived earlier than you wanted us to. I'm sorry we had to drag you here like that, and I'm sorry that you didn't want to see us yet, but I was very excited to see you. You know that much, at least.
Though she hesitated to do so for a moment, Anna finally nodded.
You're very strong. You've been here with Dad for so many cycles now. Cycles that we've spent thinking of you, sharing what we've learned, making our home a better one. And if we braved the shifting seas, it's so your new friends can be free to have a better life as well.
All of a sudden, Eka pulled Anna into a deep hug.
I just want you to know that we're here, Anna. You're not alone anymore.
Anna stared emptily ahead for a few seconds before finally nodding into the crook of the fluffy neck embracing her. The wheels of her mind were spinning much faster than they usually did. Too many feelings clashing against each other. Sparks of memories that she couldn't quite recall. But if there was one thing she remembered, it was that she had been so alone. Alone. Because she was alone, wasn't she? Her eyes moved quickly between Adder and her sister, as if asking for permission of some kind, to feel something that she wasn't supposed to feel. What she found in Adder's expression right at that moment, instead, it would haunt her for the rest of time. Right now, however, Eka wouldn't afford her the time to think about it.
I guess this must all be very confusing for the three of you.
Yes,
the short
it
of it
is.
is that we've been hiding an heirloom for a couple of weeks now. All hush-hush, as it were. Like I said, if I wanted our reunion to be this huge party that would knock you off your feet, we'd have to make all sorts of preparations. Cue my surprise when we got word that not only did the bear men know we were here, he expected us to be fully equipped and ready to attack at a moment's notice. So we got orders to show up today, just to let your little deer helper cry and die and make you all miserable and sad, and I was having none of it. So I figure, hey, you know, who's the boss? I'm the boss. I have the perfect big day present. So here's your pet and your debrief, sis. The deer's safe, the crew informed, and we only got seen by like 5 grazers. Mission success.
The whole crew howled in response, just cut short by tormented screams somewhere far above their hiding place.
I mean, mission success as long as the deer stays here. It's chaos up there. But don't worry, we'll fix that soon enough.
Adder and Sep shot a desperate look towards each other. They definitely had to do something about this whole fixing fiasco ipso facto.
So, about tonight. I mean, sure, you could attack the city today and all, but, well, oh, never mind. This would surely be talking out of place.
Yes, Pup? What is it?
Well, you see, all that ruckus up there is 'cause I'm real friggin' important. Yep. The guards are losing their minds over me missing.
Are they? Then why did they try to kill you?
'Cause I'm so important, as I said. I'm kinda, hero. Yep. A mighty one-eyed hero that helps everyone he can. A knight, as we call him here.
Sep hid her face in a hand, trying not to commit a murder on the spot.
But there is glory in acting selflessly for the pack. I don't understand.
Ruminants ain't no pack. We're just bunches of folks getting kicked by the unfair lords that got more power than us. And the deer with power, oh, they felt so threatened by my helping anyone, they put an order out to end my life.
I mean, that's technically true, I guess, but... Spinning this like a record.
Steal my assets! Eat my food! Separate me from my poor beloved boss before you were boss! Oh, my sweet little Ada!
Adder pretended to cry as he shuffled his knees towards the smith. With a hand that wasn't covering his face, he made a come-hither motion so she would understand.
Now that you and me are both reunited at last, oh, I just hate to see the family divided, to cause the whole mission to crumble to pieces. Because everyone in the city's on the lookout for Adderson, son of Gerfat of the Upper Field.
Like the fact that
is
Ana
that
is
all?
played by...
You have nothing to worry about then. We can handle a couple of deer with swords.
The fact that Ana is played by Maxie just makes it all the better every time we ever get any of their voice.
I wonder who voices Eka.
Adder tapped Ana's back increasingly fast.
Fine. I guess we can delay the raid a couple of days so you can hang out with your deer. It's not like we had official clearance to do anything yet anyway. But, to make up for it, you have to come partying with us tonight. Or, I'm taking a spare rib from your special pet. Does that sound like a good trade?
Ana nodded her head at maximum speed as she ran to give Eka the most hand-crushing handshake Adder had ever seen in his life. Her hand looked positively tiny next to Eka's, who clearly struggled both to understand the gesture and to keep her paw wrapped around her sister's wrist. Tired of this pantomime, Eka simply pulled Eka into a rib-crushing hug, lifting her right off the ground. Ana didn't murder her on the spot, meaning she was kind of happy about it.
Hey, boss. Mind if I get a celebration hug, too?
Sure, Bones. Get in here.
No, my bad. I meant Ana. You know how it is, boss. Horse habit and all.
Oh. I suppose you want some privacy, as you say? I mean, sure, whatever. It's getting pretty early for us. We were thinking about heading off to bed anyway, weren't we?
No one needed a translation for the disheartened growls Eka got from her crew.
So yeah, you two get all the time alone you need in the brig, like your boo-boos better and stuff. Let's say you and I catch up in the meantime, Dad.
How dare you propose something so reckless! I will not leave these salacious whippersnappers alone in a room without supervision!
Yeah, I thought as much. Well, don't have too much fun without me. Seriously, don't. We're trying to keep it down. Secret mission and all. Good talk. Catch you later.
Eka closed.
To
See,
be so confused.
Eka closed. See, repositioned the door after shepherding everyone into the brig. Well, they're pirates of some kind, and they have a mission to destroy the city, and we don't know who ordered them or what why for.
Yeah, either she's just making up this whole thing about sister and Paul and stuff, or like she legitimately doesn't understand what those words mean.
Oh yeah, that's a possibility. I hadn't thought about that. This could just be like linguistic problems here.
Yeah, she's saying like all these familial things when it's just like a person you are associated with is what she thinks she's saying.
Eka closed. See, repositioned the door after shepherding everyone into the brig. The storage room remained at a standstill until the wolves started barking loudly and partying again in their bedroom. Ana and Adder finally crossed gazes once more. Uncertainty shook her to the core. She couldn't even start to guess what was going through his mind now that they were alone together at last. Before Ana could even start to gesture anything, Adder leapt towards her and nearly tackled her to the ground.
Boss! I really thought I'd never get to see you again. You missed so much stuff. I got hanged 4 times, but I survived. Then I got a trial, and I could read while I was in the maze, and we won. So Elmo tried to kill me, and please tell me the Beast Pirate lady wrote the note to Barabas, and she got you all confused with a different Ana?
Ana pushed Adder away, way more aggressively than she needed to.
Right, sorry. I know you can't tell me any of that, but you can let me know that much at least, yeah? You never ever seen those folks before?
Ana scratched the back of her hair, looking anywhere but at Adder. She finally shook her head.
Wow, that's convincing.
Ana's lip curled upward into a snarl.
Oh, what a wonderful row of amazingly sharp teeth. Very ruminant-like. I can't even start to imagine where the confusion came from.
Ana's teeth are Ana's teeth, and they got nothing to do with anything right now. All that matters is that we're together now, and we're an unstoppable duo. Nay, trio. Brains,
one big
bronze,
happy
and
triad.
backbone.
And one brain cell between them.
Which one were you again?
Listen here, Missy. I don't know where we are, and I don't know what's going to happen to us. But we may be the last sad chance the city got left in surviving a beast invasion no more. Nothing will stand in our way if we decide to become heroes today.
Both Sepp and Ana turned around to glare at Adder.
Or not. Maybe not. Way to make it about yourself, Adder. What I meant to say is that as long as we ain't dead...
No, you're right. I wasn't thinking straight. We're all going to die.
No, let's not.
I'm going to die. You're going to die. And she's going to bite our tails off when we're not looking. Oh, you're too good to eat me, are you? I'll have you know that I'm delicious, you feral heap of...
The voices in the other room stop for a second.
You eat me right now.
Patron, stop! I swear I meant nothing with your daughter.
I say, you're the most useless deer I've seen in my life. Obstreperous venison!
Why is she still doing this?
I like the look.
Silence continued for a couple seconds. Soon the laughter and cheering started over again.
All right, everyone. I know this is going to sound real rich coming from me, but we got to calm down. Deep breaths. Use them lungs. Come on, boss. You too. Get those chompers over here if you gotta. No one's eating no one. No one's going to die.
I'm going to die.
I'm a little hungry, but...
So do they think that Sep is the patron just because she has red hair and horns?
I think that is exactly what's happening here. It took me a while to figure it out, but I think that is exactly what's happening here.
In your comfy bed, when you're old and wrinkled, surrounded by a herd of bulky, bumbling stags wearing itty-bitty clothes.
Will you be there?
I will.
Oh.
I'll be the one holding up your pastries platter.
Oh god, that actually hurt my heart a little bit.
And will you cry?
A whole darn river. Gonna drown everyone in the room. They'll think all that water's what got your tum so round.
Said the deer with the bloated hands. I hate you so much.
Maybe Adder is just retaining water in his hands.
Someone stabs his hands and then just like gushes out like a torrent, and they just slowly deflate. Like
they're all like hanging. Anyway,
look at that, patron. You sound just like the real deal.
You know, I've never seen somebody with stretch marks on their wrists.
Adder and Sep shared a giggle together as they rested their foreheads against each other. The peaceful moment wasn't meant to last, of course. A sharp, perforating pain in Adder's forearm reminded him that there was a third person in the room.
Okay, fine, you can join the threesome too.
Anna pointed at Sep, then at Adder. She folded her arms as her glare deepened and the drumming of her foot quickened, leaving little room for interpretation.
Right. We're all missing some introductions here, ain't we? Boss, this is Yusuf. Sep, this is Aina. I know you both. And I guess you already knew each other, too.
Oh, trust me. I'm well aware of who the cabbage head attached to a girl is. But as much as I've tried, she doesn't seem able to return the favor.
Anna nodded cautiously under Sep's resigned expression.
Why am I still able to remember, but not you? Does it have something to do with these beasts?
Adder opened his mouth, only now realizing just how much more he knew than either of them.
That is not something that Adder experiences regularly.
I know.
And he could
Also, wait, doesn't Sep already know at least something is up with Aina? Because she did the fire trick to reawaken her, and she's just like, yep, I reawakened her golem core, or whatever. Because she's like, oh, if it was an actual person, I would have just, burned their heart, but nope.
I'm wondering what,
good thing it worked.
Yeah. I think that's like what she was saying, wasn't it? Where she's just like, well, if you're actually a person, I'm going to kill you right now, and if you're not, this should reawaken you.
I wonder if Adder's the leader of some. I'm trying to think what, like the pirates.
Adder? No.
Mention
He's not capable of anything like
memories.
that.
As mentioned, the stolen memories. Let's show the stolen memories.
Maybe it's because Pertok stole your memories when you were a kid.
That could be a valid explanation if I was struggling with my memories, but she's the one who can't... Wait, what did you just say? He stole my what?
Your memories? 'Cause he wanted you to be free to make your own choices or something?
He what? No, come on, we don't have time for this.
Sep took both hands to her temples, trying to still her emotions into something mildly manageable.
If what you're saying is true, I'm sure he would be just as apt at manipulating Aina's memories as he was with mine. He could have chosen to take her memories of my family away, and that is far more distressing than any ancient curse. Why would he ever do such a thing? What could he hope to gain?
No, I don't think it was like that. I think he thought he was doing y'all a favor somehow.
He is a merchant three's sake. There must have been something in it for him. There must have been.
Anna turned her head worriedly between Sep and Adder, unable to fully comprehend the conversation they were having, but perfectly aware of how grave it seemed to be.
Don't worry, boss. We're not really sure what we're talking about either. I mean, we got no way of knowing if someone messed with your memories or not. We'll figure this out together no matter what.
The look he got told him Aina didn't believe that for 1 second, but it was enough for now.
So what's our next step then?
Huh? Why are you asking me? I'm still on plan duty?
Who do you want me to ask? The double agent?
Aina would have defended herself from the accusation, but she didn't know what that turn of phrase meant.
Right. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I'd rather be just about anywhere else in Dock Now right now. What do you say we jump ship and let Sleeping Beast party?
I say I'd love to share your optimism, but that's an idea, not a plan. I've already searched the brig from top to bottom. There's no way out from here, and I have no intention to arouse anyone's hunger walking back into the dining room.
3 heads think better than 1, yeah? I'm sure if we just racked our brains a little.
Just have Adder run into the wall and break it or something.
One of Itha's underlings will have time to check up on us while she pretends to be asleep. This is the real world, Adderson. We can't afford ourselves eternal time to come up with inanities.
Why not? Let's go back into your thoughts while we come up with something half smart then.
I don't know how I did that, and I don't even know how I could ever hope to do it again, having you around me constantly trying my
Their cavillation was cut short by a small explosion of bone-like splinters and the sound of something falling into the water shortly after.
What the? Boss! Hey! Where are you going? Don't just... And she's gone.
Case in point, we're dead.
Hey, what part of keep it down didn't you understand? Wow. Okay. I'm going to guess the hole in the wall was just made by...
The artist behind Hole in the Brig #1.
Yeah, that tracks. Man, I really thought I was finally getting through to her. Why'd she go and run like that now, huh?
Adder turned a desperate glare towards his patron.
How should I know? She's an unrepentant gobbler, and she never tells us a thing.
It's a mystery.
Mm-hmm. Whatever. We'll just have to go fetch her again. Any excuse is good to make my littermates stretch their legs and sniff every corner of the city. Bones, grab a mop and clean up this mess. And the shell, since you're at it. I want to see it sparkling when I'm back.
Clean a mess and look after your paw. Piece of cake. Aye, Captain.
You what?
You got it, ma'am?
He thinks I'm his mom. I seriously can't get enough words from you. Hey, tell me about this cake thing when we're back. I want a piece too.
Yeah,
Neither of the two people remaining in the ship dared breathe again until there was nothing left but silence deep into the darkness beyond the gap.
I enjoy that absolutely everyone in the story is a dork.
It's
Even
almost...
the antagonists are dorks.
Even the narrator's a dork.
Yeah.
It was almost nice like this, really. You just had to forget that the sight of the beast, the constant humidity, and the stomach-churning miasma seeping into the room that made both of them cover their faces and retreat into the dining room immediately. After a few moments trying to breathe in relatively fresh air, and not whatever that was, Adder opened his mouth to do more than cough.
She did it on purpose.
Excuse me?
Aina didn't just run away because she felt overwhelmed. She caused a huge distraction for us because she knew the beast would follow her. I'm sure that's it. Oh, how come I didn't get that earlier? She's so clever.
Sep gawked at the boy. Words failed her.
You know, Adder, I really feel like this whole ordeal has given me precious insight on how you managed to have such a lovely extra-laboral relationship with your boss. It can't be easy having to share half a wit between two people.
She managed to solve the beast problem for us, didn't she? That's one more thing that you've done.
Making a very determined decision not to pay any heed to whatever Sepp said next, Adder took a deep breath and ran into the break. His companion barely dared peek in. After a few moments rummaging through all the items in the storage room, Adder finally settled for the mop. That is, this stick with a bunch of fur attached to its end that only conceptually resembled a mop, as Akathorians understood them. And he rushed right back.
Please tell me that thing is the weapon of our murder-suicide, and you're not about to wipe the floor with it.
I'm trying something here. We could turn to violence if this don't work.
Well,
That's
as long
always
as
an
you're
option.
open to it.
See?
Adder scurried back out. Sepp observed as the boy leaned out of the new gap left in the wall after Aina's escape, doing his best to avoid breathing in a single puff of air or dragging his neck through the splinters.
I like to imagine that it's shaped exactly like Aina, kind of like Wile E. Coyote, you know, when he makes a hole in something.
Once out, he stuck the stick as far as he could down into the space below them.
These ain't exactly what they call shallow waters where I'm from, but I reckon we're both tall enough for them.
Adder pulled out the bizarre wolf tool. He realized the water dripping from it was particularly slimy. Adder moved his snout a bit closer to the end of the mop, following a deep-seated instinct to sniff out every unknown particle he stumbled upon. Sepp could only gag from afar. He put the mop down and snorted all the air out of his lungs.
Fancy a guess where they took us?
Before Sepp could reach out and stop him, Adder jumped out of the boat and into the water.
Shit.
Kinda. But hey, look at it from the bright.
Find me a silver lining, Adderson. Find me one, and I swear that I'm going down there just to show you where you can stick that mop.
I was just gonna say, the water only reaches up to my knees. And anyway, you were the one who said you'd rather take a bath in the sewers than put a finger on me again.
It's called hyperbole. You should know that, as you're extremely well versed in it.
Oh, well darn. Thank you.
Hyperbole with this game? No.
Defeated by her own pettiness, her limited options, and Adder's lack of vocabulary, Sepp carefully slid herself off the edge of the brig and into the cloudy waters. She stood very still for a minute, no doubt appreciating the way her boots, pants, and shirt were unable to filter out any water.
I thought you said it only reached up to your knees.
Yeah, my knees. Careful now. Wouldn't want to trip here.
You know, you were the one just accusing Aina and Adder of only having half a brain between them. And you somehow managed to forget that Adder is like a full head taller than you.
Adder walked a couple of steps ahead in the darkness, trying to encourage Sepp to do the same. Sepp took a deep breath she promptly regretted, and then a single step forward. Something squeaked under her foot, slithered away, and made Sepp slide and fall on her butt, causing a new splash.
Congratulations, Adder. You finally dragged me down to your level.
Come now. You know this is still a couple of pegs below me. I ain't been avoiding your big bro's generous offers this long for nothing.
Oh, you figured that out.
Adder stretched out a hand towards Sepp, which she took reluctantly. Then he helped her feel her way towards the sidewalk. Both Sepp and Adder looked down at the cause of her misstep. It was a vine as thick as a tree root, a wiggling tree root, or more like a whole thicket of them.
This is probably fine.
They both followed the site upwards towards their origin, the ship. Bright golden dots flickered over them like a constellation. A congregation of fungi, most likely, but this was not the moment to leave a single possibility up to chance. Another pair of radiant spheres joined the scene, this time right beside Adder. The sky blue eyes shining in the dark nearly gave him cardiac arrest, familiar as they were.
Quiet.
An orange glow followed after, radiating from Sepp's palms. The light grew in intensity until it seemed like a torch pointed directly at the heights they just jumped from. That was no ship. Aina had somehow managed to punch through a gigantic snail's oval shell, reinforced with some kind of reddish metal on the outside and bedecked with cages, grills, and flags. Hundreds of slithering vine-like appendages spread out from the depths of the shell, blocking the sewage tunnel behind it.
What is that?
I don't know, but I guess we ain't going that way.
Hell yeah, I love this. Oh god.
As if sensing an ill will of some kind, or perhaps just attracted to the light, the clusters of eyes turned toward the couple of escapees. Sepp and Adder found themselves frozen at the sight.
Boss fight, boss fight, boss fight!
The living ship started crawling towards them, vines bunched up like little feet, soaking what little water they could find to propel itself through the tunnel. First awkwardly and heavily, then faster, faster, faster. Now it was inches away, giving them a clearer sight of its hooked mouth. The creature threw its vines back, launching itself toward the ruminants, only to have its momentum cut dead short, stopped by two thick metal anchors tying it in place. Their story may very well ended here if it had managed to advance just a couple paces further. No matter how much it lashed its vines around, trying to reach the deer and the gazelle, its efforts were in vain. Adder had already lifted Sepp on his arms and started running downstream, much farther than the snail could ever hope to reach them. They rushed away, praying to every god above them that the creature wouldn't think to give them chase again.
Yeah, it's some kind of like giant octopus with a shell that they're using the shell as a ship.
Gnarly.
That's metal. I like that.
It had been a long while since the initial scare had passed. Adder and Sepp's hands remained firmly intertwined. Neither of them would be negligent enough to bring this up, of course. Adder let his eye linger over the thin strips of light that illuminated the sewers as they walked, doing his best to keep any beasts, mollusks, and past relationships that he hoped to rekindle out of his mind.
You wouldn't happen to have a map of the sewers somewhere in your mind, would you?
Yes, Adder. Studying public sanitary infrastructure layouts is just my idea of an entertaining second night.
Was that supposed to be sarcasm?
It mostly was, okay?
Nerd!
Lynn, you're in no position to laugh. Nerd. Sepp took a deep breath, reminding herself that her hobbies weren't under much scrutiny when it came to a dork.
This is mere speculation, but judging from the speed at which the water is flowing and how they managed to sneak a thing that size under the city without flooding a whole district, I'd wager we can't be too far from the sea.
Hold up! What? That's where all the crap goes in heirloom? What do y'all use to breed your fields then?
Is it truly indispensable to you that we speak about manure while we're waddling through it?
I'm just saying, I'm starting to see why nothing grows around these parts. Back in my town, we just take a basin and...
Not another word on the subject.
Her words echoed through the tunnels, making the intervention all more dramatic. 1, 2, 2.5, 3, Sepp counted to herself the seconds before Adder would open his mouth again. The count ended at 6 3/4.
So, speaking about sewer stuff, Taylid, huh? Talk about family resemblances. Wowee.
What is that supposed to mean?
Nothing. I'm just saying y'all threatened to kill me twice per sentence, but I would have never guessed y'all were brother and sister when Miss Rochelle threatened me that one time.
That's because it's supposed to be a secret. Like so many things you keep digging up.
Why?
What do you mean, why? It's obvious, isn't it? Mr. Tay-Tay is too important to let his reputation be tarnished for being related to a hobo and a whore.
Sepp, I'd never let anyone call you a hobo.
Wrong choice there.
No hobo.
1, 2, not even 3 seconds apiece this time.
I mean, what reputation are we even talking about? You ever hear the stories of the things that happen down here?
Only the ones tangentially related to me, but I'm positive I can't stop you from sharing.
See, me and Gilf toured the place a couple of times when things were real bad. Dead folk don't miss coins, or so he says.
You sound disgustingly okay with that.
Can't get queasy handling corpses when you're about to become one, man. Besides, most of them come fresh out of the arena. It's gotta be somewhere around here. That's where them noble types like to bet in secret. The poor fighters that give it a go end up rich or dead. Mostly dead. All the nasty stuff is Taylid's turf, but there's lots more to this place. There's houses and markets and doctors and all sorts of folks who'd rather live in the dark than risk getting caught in the daylight again. I even heard some say they've seen beasts down here.
I suppose we can cross that one off the rumor list.
A sudden clank on the ceiling made Sepp flail her incandescent hand around in a panic, nearly slamming it into Adder's face.
Hey! Careful with that thing!
It's called a hand, though I guess I can't really blame you for not knowing what one normally looks like.
Oh, snap.
Sepp pried her not-glowing hand away sharply from Adder's grasp, making sure to leave quite a bit of space between them. Adder stood behind, suddenly paralyzed by the urgency to run after her and the confidence that it wouldn't ultimately solve anything. So he only moved his mouth instead.
You still mad at me?
Mad? I mean, do I look mad to you? Why are you even asking me? You're the one who spent an eternity scavenging for scraps of weakness. You'd know.
Look, we've been doing the whole I insult you, you insult me worse thing all day long. And I get it. There's a whole lot of stuff going on all the time. But I thought we'd cleared things up a little, at least. I've had a lot of time to think today. And I figured, I don't know what's going to happen next. But if we ran into a beast right now, I wouldn't want things to end like this. Why don't we give the good old honest heart-to-heart a try? Just this once.
Zeb stopped walking. She turned and looked the deer in the eye with a very unconvincing attempt at a challenging expression.
I don't know, Adder. Can you be honest?
I'll do my best. I just want to talk to you again, like we used to.
Adder squeezed Sep's hand with his own once more. It was more like her whole forearm, but she understood the gesture regardless.
I could be taking a warm-scented bath right now. I could be soaking my hooves in orange blossoms, safe in my reassurance that your story had run its course. You would be nothing more than a footnote in my diary tonight, if I still had it.
But you found it in that heart of gold of yours to save me and give me a second chance.
Okay, first of all, this is not a second chance. We are not an item, Adderson.
Yeah, we never were.
It's just your boy toy. You can accept that. You can accept that he's your boy toy.
And secondly, I didn't save you. I was saving myself.
Yep, we've been through this too. You're a petty asshole and you got a block of ice for a heart.
What? What's your problem?
Oh, you didn't like that, huh? Well, that's what it sounds like when you talk about yourself, Majesty.
I wouldn't quite go so far. I do not sound like... Can we go back to when you were scared of saying a word out of turn?
Not now. I figured out you keep spewing lots of radish stew about yourself, we can't.
I knew I shouldn't have let you in.
You didn't let me in. I snuck in because it turns out I'm pretty darn good sometimes. You like having me around you.
Around may not be the preposition I'd use for where I like you best, but I do regretfully treasure your presence regardless.
Needless to say, Adder couldn't even begin to decipher the sentence, but he understood that her tone betrayed a smile despite everything.
Yeah, he doesn't know what a preposition is.
That still wasn't enough to quiet Sep's inquisitive nature, however.
Do you really want to be honest? Then stop using my feelings to deflect talking about yours for a moment. There may not be an appropriate reaction to finding out that beasts exist and your boss works for them, but I know you can't be taking this nearly as well as you pretend you are.
I don't know. I'll know how to feel when she lets me in on whatever's going on. Anything between this and that just goes in the little box of things I can't be thinking about.
Something tells me it's not precisely little.
That's something got anything to do with me giving some grand friggin' speech to the whole city while I was busy running up and down your thoughts?
Maybe. But we're talking about you now.
I gotta believe that the only thing that's changed is that she ain't my boss proper no more, now that her pa sacked me. Whoever and whatever she is, she's still the person I admire the most in Dakna. I gotta believe in her, like she believed in me. She's my best friend in the world, no matter what.
A tiny smidge of light, a single gleam in the distance, grew larger and brighter as they approached the end of the sewers. Fresh air, a bright sky, and the brave Alar Sea waited beyond their torment. White soon turned to blue, and white again as Aina's arm waved at them from the other side of the conspicuously bent grill at the end of the tunnel.
That a good enough answer for you?
It will have to do for now. You've given me much to think about.
Adder tilted his head, confused about the way she trailed off at the end, but no follow-up to that thought ever came. An ancient seawall crowned by a ruined lighthouse framed the view of the fierce waters below and the serene skies above, a distant memory of a time where lost seafaring techniques carried vessels away from the shoreline. Adder eagerly trudged those last few steps that separated them from a certain death in the waves of the high sea and into Aina's arms.
Boss! I'm so proud of you. That was amazing.
Aina's tail started wagging at full speed behind her, equally happy to see him and to receive whatever compliments she could get after such a long day. The excitement sparking between the master and apprentice didn't last long, for it soon became Adder's turn to use their one brain cell.
Yep.
We call it.
You could have clued us in on your plan back there, you know. What if we'd gotten lost along the way?
That wasn't no plan. You just got mad we weren't paying attention to you, so you punched a wall and then rolled with it.
Aina helped Adder up with a final heave, a half hug, and a non-committal smile.
Well, I sure as hey ain't fixing that hole for you.
Adder took both hands to his face and sighed. It was then he noticed that he'd gotten drenched hugging Aina.
Oh, boss! You all right? You're soaked to the bone. Sheesh, even your tips are getting all faded now.
Adder was going to pat Aina's head dry when a thought struck him.
How'd that happen exactly?
Aina pointed down to the tunnel they just came out from, and then back at the ground below them. She marched in place, covering her head, crouched down, and then sprung back to her feet, mimicking the extraordinary act of swimming in the air. She finished her act, casting an expectant look in Adder's direction, tail still wagging behind her.
Good job, boss. Had a girl.
Satisfied with her reward, Aina started rummaging through her belt bags. After a short search, she produced the blue and white fabric she'd been wearing since the previous night and presented it to Adder.
Do me a favor and hold on to that till I need it.
A little help here? I'd rather not drown in a sewage exit if it's all the same to you.
Aina and Adder both leaned over the edge of the wall to help Seb up. It's not like Aina really needed the assistance. She was strong enough to lift 8 to 12 steps, but Adder felt the extraordinary urge to make sure his little threat of a boss wouldn't drop the gazelle back into the water as a prank or something. At last, the three of them stood atop the wall. Like the promise of a new day, a chilly breeze blew behind them, carrying their woes toward the endless horizon.
See?
Also, they
I
stank
keep telling y'all
real
there's always a way to
bad.
make things right, and you never believe me.
I'll make sure to set my skepticism aside for you, if we're still alive tomorrow.
Yeah, don't hallude till you're out of the woods.
Aina nodded resolutely, like she had any idea what that phrase meant.
We ought to get moving. Ain't no way of knowing how long those things are going to be chasing Aina. I don't even want to imagine what they're going to think of me eloping with y'all's dad.
Smith smirked and started gesturing something that Adder couldn't slap down fast enough.
There is no point in making baseless conjectures. The sooner we react, the better indeed. Our next move could prove critical for the future of the city.
Our? Hold up. You coming with us? Like, of your own condition?
Volition?
You ain't ditching us?
Wow. You really think I care so little about the city I was raised in and its poor defenseless people?
Adder squinted his one eye at her.
I go where the sister of the captain goes, of course.
Aina bared her teeth at Seb, trying to push her off.
Aw, what's wrong? You have a complicated relationship with your family too, little beast girl. Boop.
This.
At her look. Boop. Boop. It's like messing with a kid. I don't even have to try to make her mad.
If you don't quit that right now, I'm the one who's gonna flip out. Heads on the game, all right?
Aw, look what you've done, Aina. Here comes the big boar bro.
Sit. Focus. It's our necks on the line here. We agree we gotta warn everyone then?
Sep moved her eyes lazily from her little game poking Aina's nose and trying not to get her finger bitten off to Adder, who looked about ready to expedite the process.
Who does everyone entail exactly? Do you have a feasible plan this time? Or are you just set on running around the city screaming like a madman about the end of the world until you run out of breath?
No, of course not. That'd be dumb. I know better than anyone. This is way above our pay grade. The city guard should be taking care of it.
Those buffoons either didn't realize they had beasts hiding in their ranks, or they let them run free amongst their own. But if you want to try your luck with Elbar, after ruining any future the two of us had together on top of that, please don't let me stop you.
Well, in my defense, if it wasn't for today, we wouldn't know about the wolves in the first place. You think Lord Snotty Snout was in on this?
I may have fared better if he was some kind of conspirator, but alas, he's too self-absorbed to be capable of such evil.
Beasts could have spent moons handing out bribes right under his nose, and he wouldn't have had the faintest idea.
I would have known was the idea Seth left unspoken.
Who's left then?
Adder put both hands on his temple, trying to juice his gray matter into grayish ideas. Step closed her idea thoughtfully. Aina put her hand on her chin so as not to be left out.
I mean, Illigrab is the closest thing to a responsible adult in the entire game.
Yeah.
On the other hand, he has, tendencies.
Yeah.
To just, ignore what are actually major problems because he's been around so long, they seem like small problems to him.
Hence, I did qualify by saying the closest thing.
Let's tell Illigrab.
What about Illigrab?
He's too skeptical. There's no way he would believe us.
It's still worth a try, right? It's either him or the patron at this point. I'd rather go with the one that ain't burning.
At least that particular flavor of crazy old man makes himself easy enough to find. Illigrab could be anywhere in the city.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. We'll just have to wash up on the beach, disguise ourselves, and go asking around town. Someone's bound to know where he is sooner or later.
Suddenly cross about something no one other than Adder could hope to understand, Aina started shaking her head and cutting the air emphatically with her arms.
What's wrong, boss? You don't think it's a good plan?
She bit her lip, trying to piece together a clearer way to express her thoughts. She pulled on her shirt, wrapped one fist around the other next to her heart, then tapped on her nose quickly.
These clothes stink so much it makes you want to throw up.
I think she's signing the beasts can smell us? But not just smell us. They can smell... chest. No. Heart? That make a single lick of sense to you?
Steph's mouth hung agape as she finally understood what Aina was trying to communicate.
They can scent the Hatsa.
That means...
It means they can scent the Hatsa! Just how do you know that, Aina? Why are you so sure about that?
Aina's eyes narrowed into mere lines.
Well, they ain't found her for one, so whatever it is that is, she must be onto something.
Steph shot a glare in Adder's direction. She had no actual retort to this logic that wouldn't result in at least a half hour of arguing, however.
Fine. That's not the concerning part. If what she's saying is true, that would mean they're capable of perceiving our very soul through their sense of smell. They could be magnitudes better at navigating a current than we could ever hope to be.
Adder joined Aina in nodding non-committally, as if either of them got any of that. Steph sighed, with violence.
Imagine you could smell the waves about leaves in the sea when the wind blows in your direction.
Yeah, no, that's impossible.
No, it's not. Every action we take shapes both our connection to the Hatsa and that of those intersecting with us, which in turn shifts the Hatsa itself in infinitesimal ways we cannot even start to perceive or measure. That's the very essence of Sephihet.
Steph, please remember you're talking to two uneducated adults.
You're at a level 10 of sepness right now. I need you to come down 2.
The kids all made a brief choking motion with her hands.
If you don't want your Hatsa read through your gaze, you can close your eyes, yes. But you can't do that with your smell. There's no actual way to change or erase the unique essence your blood gives off, only make it less noticeable.
So they can't smell where her thoughts are? Because the sewers sink more than the sea!
It was Steph's turn to stare blankly at Adder. There was almost a sense of wonder in her eyes, really. It was a look that told him she was asking herself the important question, how could I ever think of associating with you was a sound idea?
Potentially, yes. Now, suppose strong smells actually confuse them. I hope you understand that I'm not willing to spend the rest of my miserable existence bathing in sewage on the off chance this pipsqueak is not making stuff up. Which finally takes me back to the original point I wanted to make. If Aina thinks this stench is our disguise, wouldn't it make more sense for us to hide using a scent that didn't remind them of the place we just escaped from?
Aina and Adder looked at Sep. Then they looked at each other. They huddled up a few steps away as Aina started sighing and making quiet noises.
No, she kind of got a point there, boss. What? I ain't taking nobody's side. I'm just saying that, hey, What's that supposed to mean? Don't call me names.
Adder finally emerged from their little coven, wiggling his fingers with apprehension.
So, here's the thing, Sip. You may not have noticed, because you lived here your whole life surrounded by fancy perfume and delicious soap, but coming all the way up from Chantilly, I can promise you this one thing. The first thing you notice when you walk into Heirloom ain't the walls, ma'am. The city don't smell like roses. However, we diggity do agree this is the grossest thing either of us has gone through in a good long while. And I got no intention to let the one decent set of pants I own stay dyed green-brown for the rest of my stay here. If we want to find the middle point between our safety and our decency while we weather out the storm, we gotta make sure we're still blended in after washing up. And we can only do that...
Please say
naked.
something intelligent.
In a place that smells worse than we do.
Why? Why would you reach that conclusion? If all we need is to disguise ourselves, we may as well douse our bodies in spice and jump into a temple. They won't be able to tell either way.
Sure thing, Your Majesty. Name one shop in the city where 3 weirdos covered in crap can ask for a whole bucket of spices to jump in. How about I do you one up and help you find a good fire pit to save the beast the trouble of cooking that marinade?
I did not say it was a feasible idea. I was simply stating the fact there are better ones out there. We don't even need to change our scent too much from the usual, right? You usually smell like ash. Why don't we go hide in Anna's forge?
I mean, the smoke would be a real nice way to hide us, if it weren't for the fact that pyres tend to attract a lot of guards. But if you're so desperate to go back to smelling like flowers, we could always go and hide in the desert rose like we used to. I bet Miss Rochelle's gonna be real happy to see you in good company. Ain't she now?
Has anybody ever mentioned how lowly your rhetoric is?
If they have, I sure as hey didn't understand. So, there's the plan, ma'am. All in favor of finding a grid enough place where a bunch of beasts can't eat us and hide till we have a better plan, please raise your hands.
Adder raised one of his ridiculous hands. Aina raised both to match. Sep took a hand to her face.
The masses have spoken. All that's left is finding the place then.
Aina quickly tapped her nose and motioned her friends to follow her as she jumped back into the sewers, clearly set on a target.
That's the spirit, boss. Lead the way. Come on, Majesty. I'm sure that once we got a moment to sit down and rest our hooves, they'll all start making sense again.
If any of this starts making even an inch of sense to me, you can just go ahead and let them skewer me with my own horns.
Sep climbed back down to the sewer entrance, closely followed by Aina's snickers. Adder remained on the ruins for a moment longer, engrossed by this last chance to marvel at the scenery ahead.
Hey, Sep, you get a feeling this place looks familiar somehow?
It's just the view of the palace.
Right. That gotta be it.
What Adder didn't say back then, and probably never said to her until the day he died, is that he'd just figured out the reason why their beloved low-tide beach was always so empty. The trio diligently followed Aina's lead through the tunnels, none of them particularly willing to joke around or carry any light this time around lest they attract any sort of extra unsavory attention. They walked several blocks upstream, taking turn after turn through the many meanders that diverged in the darkness. They knew their exit was near when the brown streams nearly dried out, and the bricks started covering the ceiling to save the city from the sight of their own waste got scarcer. Soon they were trudging through an open channel that delineated the beginning of the sewers as repurposed irrigation ditches from times where the slums had been filled with industrious researchers and
Architectonic?
Architectonic? I have never heard that word before. Architectonic projects.
It sounds very ancient sci-fi kind of thing.
Architectonic.
A time before the Barhan Rebellion and the expropriation decrees, before slander had become synonymous with murder, now the gutter was as safe a place as any to walk in the district. They followed Aina for what felt like hours, till they finally emerged on the serrated edge of a cliff.
You could tell how much I love high places, I see.
Sep glared at Aina through a pressed grin. The smith smirked back, showing every last tooth.
Need me to carry you?
Not in front of that varmint, I don't.
Aina was rather certain this was not the case, however, and selflessly volunteered to the task.
What do you think you're... Put me down, you beast! Put me down!
Aina ran ahead, carrying the screaming Sep in one hand like a hot dish.
I mean, she is a hot dish.
Would you look at that? Y'all seem like such good friends already.
Adder followed the
Adder
girls up the
ships it
narrow
too.
path ahead, skirting the vertical climb until he reached a rundown house that was dangerously close to giving up on its foundations and just falling. His lips formed a very concerned line as he found himself on his own doorstep.
Hey, boss. Since when do you know where I live?
Oh, I know all kinds of things about you. Creepy, huh?
Shut up. This is your house? The house you share with Gyoff. You mean to tell me he's been living like this?
Stepp's horrified expression only lasted until she remembered the company around her.
Hera be blessed. When you said you both lived in a shack, I assumed that would entail a building with a minimum of 4 walls.
Hey, it ain't so bad. We got 3.5, and a wonderful backyard with its own outhouse and everything. It's the brick box at the edge of the cliff.
I really should have taken you to the doctor before bringing you anywhere near me.
Far too late to be worrying about that, Sep.
That made to step into the house, prompting Adder to casually put his whole arm across the threshold.
You know what? Now that I got a moment to think about it, I don't think this is such a hot idea. I'm not really allowed to bring guests over.
I'm sure the occasion merits an exception.
Maybe. But maybe actually truly we ought to hide somewhere else. Like a dump. I mean, it smells almost the same, but without the danger of running into my landlord.
We have far more serious problems than Gyoff right now. Move.
No way. Nope. Nuh-uh. You know, if it was about me, I'd say my home is your home. Except it's not. We can't hide in there. If I dragged any crap in, Mr. Bard would murder me.
You are going to get murdered either way, Adderson. Just let me take a bath.
Bath?
Yes, Adder dear. Lead me to the place where you purportedly used to wash yourself after roaming the streets before I stupidly lent you my own.
That'd be ain't his tub, but boy, oh boy, there's no means to justify that end. No offense to your soap-making skills, boss, but I'm pretty sure those were just lie bars. I swear I was yellow all over before I started using that thing.
The Donsoon was suffocating season to its very end. Random licks of fire and strong gusts of hot wind full of embers weren't exactly commonplace, much less so specifically placed behind 2 people. Both Adder and Aina turned around slowly.
I don't much care where or how, but I was promised a bath and a modicum of peace for going through with this stupid plan, Adderson. If I have to make you build a bathtub and fill it with your own tears to wash myself, I will.
That was a promise, not just a threat.
Well, if you ain't picky as long as it makes me cry, I know a place we could go. Mr. Bard said there used to be a decent hammam down the street, but it was shut down a while before I arrived. They found the owner dead in real mysterious circumstances. No knife wounds or bashed in heads or nothing like you see around these parts. They say the bath's cursed now, and anyone who comes in never comes out.
I think I'll take my chances.
Oh, it's this part.
Yeah, sure thing. What's a little more cursed matter at this point?
Yeah, I knew it was coming the moment that they started
Right this
walking
way,
through
then.
the sewers.
For some reason, just now, the other shoe dropped.
I dare not repeat the word step save for Adder and his boss, as she was surreptitiously led back into the sewers, seeing as the gates to the baths were still locked.
Knock, knock. One
boy.
fresh bucket of our finest water coming up for her grace.
God! How is it so cold?
We should be thankful the pump's working at all. Scrub 'em leggies like you mean it, or you won't be getting into the pool.
Hold on. Is this what I think it is? Bath episode?
Lynn, stop that. You're going to smear the ink.
Dude, I like that.
This sure brings me back to my water sealing days.
Okay, it's past midnight. We're going to need to pause here now. We will be doing bath episode next time.
Yes.
Bath episode next time.
Don't miss it.
Join us next time for some good, clean fun.
Alright. Yes, we're
Well,
gonna be excited.
I already am.
Yeah.
Get excited, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hyped. All right. Good night,
Good
folks.
night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night night.
Good night.